Hello, hello. How are we doing today? Just filling the team out of what it's gonna look like this morning. Um, how we doing, everybody? Connor, how are we? I'm assuming. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning. What do we think about today? Well, the midfield's Casemiro Bruno, not Casemiro Eriksson, I believe. I believe it'll still be Bruno. Last time Eriksson played with Bruno, it was Eriksson more forward and Bruno deeper. So Eriksson's one of the 10s, which is fine. The biggest, I feel much more strongly about the Lindelof call than I do about the Cheeto call, because Cheeto was not supposed to be ready yet. However, I'm disappointed. Mostly, I'm disappointed by Lindelof starting instead of Heaven or Amas. I don't really mind the other stuff. I don't really mind so much. I kind of thought it would be quite possible Eriksson started, but yeah, I don't really mind the other stuff so much. Cheeto starting would be nice, but not expected. Morehouse was never going to start. Fletcher's never going to start. But Heaven or Amos. Amos was, again, he was included in the Europa League squad. He's been there a while. I thought, Heaven or Amos starting today would be a good one. A good time for them to play. I don't see why not. It feels like it should be. Feels like it should be one of them starting in this team. For Casemiro, the only option would have been Collier. Maybe he's not fit enough to start, but really the one that to me feels personally more egregious, like where I just don't get it, is the Lindelof one. I would just start Heaven. I would just start Heaven or Amas. That's really the only one. The only one. Because you also need to rest some of these guys. I mean, I guess then you could bring on Amos and Heaven, and that allows you to sub maybe Lenny Yoro and Delict and move Mazraoui in or something. Maybe that's possible, but you could do that with Lindelof off the bench also, I suppose. So we'll see. I mean, there's not a lot of options when you look at it. There's not a ton of options. Yeah, I worry a bit about Delict. Well, no, I mean, clearly Let's Go. The thing is that Amram obviously doesn't feel they're ready, and I think he should do it anyway, personally. But obviously, this is his approach. If he doesn't think they're ready, he doesn't think they're ready. Anyone at the 19? I mean, I doubt any people at the protest are on here, but then again, I saw a video the other day of someone watching a watch along while at Old Trafford. I think most people saw that one get shared on the internet. That's embarrassing to me. If you're at the games, don't be hanging out with me during the games on your phone. Be present. Be at the game. Be present. Please. And I'm not even talking me. Please do not hang out with do not sit on a watch along if you are at Old Trafford watching a game. For the love of God, have some shame, have some dignity, have some self-respect, and be present in the moment and watch the team in front of you. You don't need to listen to people online for your opinions on the game if you're there in person watching. But yeah, thank you guys for being here, for hanging out. Make sure while you're here, as we'll talk about the lineup in a second, as well as a few other things. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, turn notifications on, do all that shit. I will be doing a watch along when the game starts in about 45 minutes, just wanted to chat about some things early on here. There's a few things to discuss. Um, One, obviously, there is the I'll just put the pictures up that I have here, that I retweeted from Simon Stone that posted because I'm not there. But yeah, obviously protest today that was organized against the Glazers. It was interesting seeing last night pictures of Ed Glazer in Manchester. He's one of the other Glazer brothers, obviously, who's not like active with United. He shows up once in a while. He's very active with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, from what I know. Shows up once in a while, and it's an interesting timing for him to show up. It's interesting timing for him to show up. I don't know why. If I was a suspicious person, I would be a little bit suspicious that Sir Jim, who intended to be there for, but see, if I say certain things, people take it the wrong way or take it like it's spinning it in too much of a positive light. But Sir Jim was obviously well aware of the protests and wanted to be there. So, I think that's important to note. But if I was a suspicious person, I would surmise that maybe it was an invitation for Ed Glazer to attend. One of the Glazers who maybe if he decides he really doesn't want to own and deal with Manchester United in the future anymore, that it would be easier to start to obtain more of the club from them. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. That's just me. The other thing I wanted to talk about here was this from Ornstein this morning. He says that he was talking about Vivell being appointed, and he spoke about the change in focus that we went over in this recruitment overhaul video from the other day about Vivell being appointed. He was speaking about how that Vivell coming in is overhauling it. He's going to report into Jason Wilcox. Remember, that's how he laid it out. And that the new model kind of moving forward recruitment is very often going to be going for the younger players, not the players on big wages and the big names. So when we look at like the names we were talking about yesterday and comparing like the tiers of names, remember, it's not that they will 100% avoid them, but it's because financially they're not going to have enormous amounts of money unless we win Europa, and then we'd have more. But also just in general, the philosophy of going for younger players moving forward. And so, given that, that's what we're going to be, following. That's what we're going to be doing. We'll be recruiting that. So we went through a lot of the names yesterday again on the live and talking about a lot of the names that were there. And yeah, so thinking about that probably increases the possibility of guys like, obviously we know Kenda, but then guys like Chris Rigg and Nippon increases the possibility of young midfielders. Joe Bellingham, Hayden Hackney, those names increases the possibility of those younger center backs, right? That we've been hearing about recently, from Argentina, Jimenez, one from Yusuf from Turkey. Obviously, Branthwaite and Hausen are still young, but expensive potentially, though Branthwaite may be a bit cheaper this summer, and I would be interested to see that. Todibo is still young, and if he's available on a good fee and good wages, I wouldn't lose sight of that. At striker, though, it is interesting. It tells us kind of what we wanted to do. So I guess we will see what happens, but I strongly suspect that obviously this summer we're more likely to be going for 4 or 5 young players than we will for We'd rather get five or I guess what I'm saying is we'd rather get a right wing back, a center back, a midfielder, a 10, a striker, all young to make sure we get everything done, and then you know, yeah, and then we will that way we have a full team. Then they would go for 2 or 3 big names. Why should we buy young players? Amram doesn't use them, but he does. He plays Lenny Yoro, he plays Dorgu, he plays the young players that they've purchased into the team. It's just pretty obvious that, unfortunately, whether agree or disagree, he just doesn't rate the young players we have at the club that highly enough to be ready to play for his team. Again, rightly or wrongly, that's the truth of it. He just doesn't, clearly. But he has no problem playing Dorgu, who's young. He has no problem playing any of these other young players we've bought. He has no problem playing Lenny Yoro, who's quite young. I mean, Lenny Yoro's younger than most of the players that I just named that we might be purchasing. He just clearly doesn't rate the youth at the club right now that highly, or in terms of their readiness. And youth and young are not the same things as well. So he rates them enough, a few of them, obviously, to get towards the team, but he doesn't rate necessarily their readiness to play. I think we should give them more of a chance. Myself. This can get ugly will be on Amarim, this team selection. How would it be on Amarim, the team selection? Like, how would it be on Amarim? Look, if it gets ugly, it has nothing to do. If it gets ugly, playing a couple of youth players isn't going to change that. That's the part of it that's incongruent, There's no good team selection available that is going to make us give us a better chance of like winning. Like, we want to see youth, but then saying that, well, it's going to give us a better chance of win is incongruent with the whole idea of why you would put the youth in. It's because you can lose that you'd put youth in. That would be a better indication. Putting youth in would probably make us worse today, even though people don't believe that, but I'd still be for it. But it's not going to make us better. Playing Morehouse or Fletcher is not going to make us a better team today. I would like to see it still personally, but it's not going to make us a better team. So, there is no good selection available. This is what we have. What we need to see is obviously just, I think there's not a lot of pace up here. So we're not really going to be hitting on the brake. Yeah. It's not going to be hitting on the brake. So I don't know what we're going to do particularly. I mean, it's, I don't know. We'll just have to see how it plays out in the game. It's practically impossible to predict how a game like this will play out. Usually when people think we're going to get absolutely battered, we don't. Usually when we don't and things just go differently. You don't know. Yeah, you're correct. I don't know that, Rico, for sure. And that's why I'd like to see the youth. But at the same time, my point on is that you wouldn't go, oh, well, if we lose, it's because of we didn't choose the youth. It's not. If we lose, it's because we don't have good players. Playing the youth may work, it may not. You're still likely to lose either way, given just that we just don't have a strong lineup right now. We just don't have a strong team at the moment. Too many injuries, too many players missing. I mean, factually, if Maguire, Ugarte, Manu, and Collier were fit, we probably wouldn't see, we would play a much stronger team as well, right? If they were all fully fit, we'd play a much stronger team. But what I'm saying is, if we want to say that we should play youth, it's not like, oh, well, if we lose, it's because of the lineup. No, we lose because we just don't have a good enough team right now. Playing youth is separate to that. It's giving people a chance. It's, there's future benefits to it. I think you don't play youth to try to win. That's my point. When you start doing that, that's one of the reasons you wouldn't do it. is you don't pick youth because you're just trying to win a game randomly here, you know? Um, Arsenal complain. I mean, and this is a crazy part of it, right? Like, this is the crazy part of it, right? Like, we have a few injuries now, but we don't even think about the ones that have been like I don't even think anymore about Luke Shaw and Mason Mount. Not Mason Mount will actually be back this, in like end of March. That's the estimated timeline. But like we don't even think about them anymore when we think about injuries because they've been gone for like 2 years. They haven't even played. They're just not even like part of the United team anymore. So we think about, Mainu, who will be back soon. Ahmad, who's missing, unfortunately, this season. Lissandro missing for the season. What do you call it? Did I miss somebody? Those are the three main ones, right? Ugarte and Maguire, which will be back this week. But then you don't even think about like Shaw and Mountain. I mean, we're missing like 7 good players. It's just that 4 of them, it's been like they're just like been out forever. Just been out forever. It's crazy. I'm interested on Xerxes playing up top, though, up to report to. Yeah, I mean, there's, it's going to be an interesting flow here. I really am not sure the dynamics of how this front three works. You're going to have a lot of players dropping in. I think what you'll see is hopefully Xerxes and Eriksson dropping in those 10s positions that are really letting the fullbacks and Garnacho run, and maybe that will find some space in that way, but don't know. There's nothing much that would inspire me in this team, that's for sure. But yeah, that is what it is, I guess. That's where we're at. That is where we are at right now. Let's see. Tottenham drew with Bournemouth, so I guess we need a point to stay ahead of Tottenham. What else? What else here? Hopefully, um, you prefer Højlund than Eriksson? I don't. I'd rather see Højlund. I'd rather see Eriksson play. Hopefully, I would really like to see Harry Amos and Aiden Heaven come in. And then, maybe and then Cheeto up top. I'd really like to see that. But with Collier and Højlund on the bench, I'm gonna guess you'll get it's more likely to see Collier and Højlund subbed in. Højlund for Xerxes at some point, Collier for Eriksson. But then that means you've got to leave Casemiro and Bruno for 90, even though you need them on Thursday. Unless, I don't know. Yeah, Lindelof is the main one. How many shares does Ed own? It doesn't really work that way, shenanigans. So the Glazers have to be done in a block. One Glazer family member cannot on their own sell. However, they can in their block of them, they could push for selling the shares or selling more of the shares, and so if enough of the Glazer family push to sell, it would force the rest to sell, if that makes sense. So it still matters. It still matters to try and get other Glazer siblings to want out and to want to cash in. Basically, that would still matter to me. That would still be an important part of trying to get them to sell. Is that all of them is the more you can get them to want to, or other ones to want to, others Glazers besides Joel and Avram to sell, the more pressure there is for them to sell. So it does matter. Yeah, Lindelof is the main one. We have Amos on the bench. Yeah, that was the only left-footed player, I believe. Yeah. Jack Fletcher, is he left-footed? Someone on the bench is left-footed. Yeah, it is a whole family. It is a whole family. It is a whole family. No, I mean Lindelof is, yeah, that's the main one. Like I said, that's the main one that I don't like, because I can understand why you wouldn't start Cheeto, but Heaven, I feel like he deserves to play this game. Yeah, yeah, and the starting team, and that's the funny part, right? Like this is why I'm pretty much not prone to critique too much on Amarim at the point in time, because if you look at Sporting, I think he plays 6 left footers more often than not. He would want left footer, left footer, left footer, left footer, and then usually one of the midfielders perhaps is a left footer. He loves having left footers in the balance of the team to for certain aspects of his imbalance kind of build up. And we don't have any of them. So yeah, that's not so good. The bottom 3 were defeated, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're not getting relegated. That hasn't been the case. So we were never really in danger of getting relegated, but that doesn't mean it's easier to watch what we're watching week in and week out. Let me just see here. So what do we think? I mean, so yeah, what we have today is we've got Ornstein talking about Vivell and the players we might go for, that we're going to be going for young players. Adam Wharton left foot, yeah, true. Talking about that. We've got the protests going on. If every Glazer sibling sold to anyone else apart from Joel Abram, should Jim be the majority shareholders? Yes, but it doesn't really work that way, Keith. So, like, correct. 4 of them have. He only would actually need to buy 2, by the way. I think, to get the majority shareholding. If he bought 2, because Sir Jim on his own, or Ineos now, is the biggest shareholder. If he bought 2 siblings shares, I believe he would become the largest shareholder depending on which 2 he bought. But he can't just buy 2 of them. They have a block where on the present agreement they all have to agree to the sale. So technically he could buy 2, but they would all have to agree to it, not just the 2. So he can't bit and piece buy one by one, like without approval from the other ones. However, if like Ed Glazer sitting there saying, I want out and I'm going to sell my 20% or my 18%, he would have to get approval from the other Glazers to do so, and then he could. So it's not meaningless to try and get the other Glazers to sell. It's not meaningless, but it still has to be. It still has to be. I think it requires a unanimous decision. I have to. I don't recall off the top of my head now. We went through it all during the whole time, but from what I understand, I believe it's unanimous. I think that Avram and Joel basically have more power to approve or disapprove, because I think it must be based on the amount. Like, I believe that they have more withhold power to say no to this than others. I could be wrong on this. I cannot remember off the top of my head right now what was all figured out, but I believe you really do need approval from all of them in order to sell, because as well you might be forced to sell it where the other Glazer siblings get the first dibs to buy it, basically. Now, would they? Probably not, because that would require them actually spending money. But I think they would have, the other Glazer siblings would have to offer it to the other Glazers first, per the agreement, if I'm not mistaken. But then again, Sir Jim, as a part of this agreement, might now be included in that. Right, yes. So they can sell and convert to Class A, correct. But what I'm saying, but that's going to only get them half the price of what Sir Jim would be paying. So like the market price is only like $14. Sir Jim would be paying $33 for Class B shares. They're not going to sell and convert to Class A, because that immediately just they have controlling stakes. Sometimes a few of them will sell off a small amount just to make some cash, but um, for selling off the bulk of their share, I think that I think that Sir Jim's actually a part of that block now, where he would also have to he would get some first right to it as well. Anyway, it's all fairly confusing, but the point is he can't just buy them one by one. Let's just leave it at that simple. He cannot just buy them one by one without approval from the group. But if there's approval from the group, he could buy them one by one. So in theory, it can work. Yeah, he's essentially considered a part of the Glazers, basically. But they would still all have to approve it. Why doesn't he buy the Class A shares on the stock exchange at the lower price now? I think that it could be seen as maybe misleading, maybe avoiding paying the cost that he should. If he let's say he buys the Class A shares now, and then 3 months later he makes an offer for the Class B, I think he would open himself up to the same lawsuit, saying, "Hey, you ripped us off because you intended to buy these shares and you didn't." It's a little more complicated than that. I think that given where he's at, he has to purchase. He's going to have to pay the higher price for them because he's an owner. Yeah, the same issue will remain in future purchases, Glenn, that made it there in the first part. Yes, the same issues are there, unfortunately, because that's the only thing that blocked the full sale in the beginning was that, because it was an extra like 1.5 billion for nothing. It's just, and that's even let's not say Sheikh Jassim is not a real person or anything like that. Even Sheikh Jassim's final offer reported would have been a full sale, but he was also not willing to pay the price for the Class A shares. So it was essentially that was essentially the problem that made the club $1 billion over what anybody was willing to pay, was that Class A problem. And it will still be a requirement for the next, if there's a future purchase of sales, that will always be relevant to future purchases of these Class B shares. So yeah, we'll have to deal with that, unfortunately. It is kind of ridiculous, but yeah. It's kind of crazy that I don't understand why that's the case personally. Still, it doesn't really add up to me, because the Class A have never been worth the same, but this is kind of the point. I mean, protests are just making your voice heard, right? Protests are just making your voice heard. That's what the point of it is. It's to get the message across. That's what it's for. It doesn't have to be more than that. It's still useful. I mean, peaceful protest has always been important. I mean, there's nothing against that. It's always been important in any group to just get your message across of what you want to say. It gets media coverage, it gets eyes, things like that. Maybe your hope is that it puts pressure on change occurring. Yeah. Is SJR not a related party or affiliate shareholder, whatever now? And wouldn't that mean he only has to buy B shares next time? You know, Darren, I've thought about that too. That, like, if one of the Glazers sold their B shares to another Glazer, which I think they have, they didn't have to make that kind of offer, right? So I've wondered about that too. Given that he's now a part of the club, would he be able to buy up more shares without making the same offer? I do wonder about that as well, Darren. I'm really not sure. The initial agreement, because there's no further, I think he would have to make it in the same way. But I don't know, have any of the Glazer siblings ever bought B shares from each other in the past? Or have they only sold off their Bs and converted them to As? That's the question we don't have that I don't know. Have any of the Glazer siblings, Darren, ever sold their B shares to other Glazers? I don't think they have. I think they've only sold and converted to A's to change their shareholding. But unless they've transferred some for free, but then the Glazer block isn't it also a holdings that encompasses all 6 of the Glazer siblings, where they're actually like one company, so they can transfer shares more freely in between them. If I'm not mistaken, they very cleverly set it up. Unfortunately, yeah, headliner. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they have sold each other's shares, but then they're also, I think they have one holdings company that owns all of the shares technically for the 6 of them, of which they are individual members with. There's a lot of unfortunately annoyingly clever ways they've set it up that make it really difficult to do anything with the whole fucking setup. Like it makes it really, which was obviously the point when it was set up by them and Malcolm way back when, was to make it really hard to ever like it was to make it hard to get it away from them. That was the challenge. That's what's really been going on. You know, they've traded B shares, but I think right, Darren. I think they have traded B shares, but I think again because they're in the Glazer Holdings company or whatever, right? Like there's a Glazer Trust or holdings company that is all of their shares together. Um, yeah. I don't think there's a disconnect between protesting outside and cheering the team because they're not protesting Ruben Amorim. They're not protesting the players on the pitch. They're not protesting the football. They're protesting the ownership model. I don't think that's incongruent. I don't think that there's something wrong with that. Like they're not protesting Manchester United, you know. They're protesting the ownership decisions around Manchester United. Right? I don't think that they're incongruent. I think that's pretty ordinary. It's kind of like that thing of like you can protest the government, but you can still like participate in life, you know? and in government services and things like that. What you mean is nothing will change? Well, I mean that's a different discussion as well. There's 6 individual holdings, but isn't there a Glazer trust as well? Like, um, God, there because how could they move it in together? It's through their investment firm Red Football Unite Limited, right? Um, isn't Red Football Limited isn't that who actually own, or is that just a management company for the UK? Hmm. Or was that? I don't remember, honestly. It's complicated. It is complicated. I just don't recall. Or did the Football Limited change? I thought it was still active. Maybe it all changed. I don't remember these things. All I know is their setup is no, the Red Football Limited is still going, but maybe that's just the group that's in the UK they've set up to manage the club via the ownership that they have. Anyway, it is complicated, isn't it? It's quite complicated. So no, I don't know the exact answer, but from what I recall of the original thing, um, is that they couldn't do it. Billionaires are weird people. They are. They are. Ruben Amorim said Lisandro Martinez is in the dressing room today. talking about him helping to motivate and help the team and all that. That's cool. I think Lissandro's a miss, definitely. It's such a shame because he'd been really kind of coming through so well. Ruben Amram says, I considered using young players, but this game is really important and I don't want to put them in the team at this moment. So he's essentially saying he's just protecting them. Again, rightly or wrongly, that's what he's saying. Fair. Okay. So like I said, I could disagree, but that's his view of it. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Well, James, what do you think about the info about the debt due to pay off 2027? Yep. So in a video I did recently, I talked about that specifically. Was it PR? No, it was not the PSR versus PR video. It was hang on, let me find it. Because if you haven't watched it, it's here we go. I think it's in this video here, in this tweet here. I did a video where I talked about how when the debt payments go up later, why explaining United's financials, why I believe that is a big part of why they'll need to sell in the next couple of years, is because of that. So watch that, because I discussed that in particular about the debt going up, how you're going to fund the stadium, all these types of things, and why it makes the most sense for the Glazers to sell, given that. Okay, I need to go do a few things before the game starts, so I will see you guys over there for the watch along. I'm going to start it in like 5 to 10 minutes here. Let's see. Come join me over here on Big Up. That's the link to the profile, things on there. They're still running like a fun kind of promotion thing where if you make an account, watch for 3-4 minutes, then you get to you get these little big bucks that you can give out and donate to streamers of your choice and all that. Anyway, the watch along's a lot of fun. They've made the games that we've been dealing with recently a hell of a lot more enjoyable. So I hope to see you all over there. Yeah. Hopefully we have a decent game. I hope to see you all there. Come join me, and I'll see you in a bit. Otherwise, enjoy watching a game. Hopefully it goes better than everybody thinks that it does. It's 50 big bucks, which is actually like 50 cents. It's like Twitch bits that you can donate to a streamer of your choice and things like that, just to support and for fun. It's just part of like making it a fun platform and things like that. So anyway, yeah, have fun, and I will see you guys there.